Hey everybody, this is Tony.
And this is Paul. We're coming at you from the Friends for Life podcast, where we discuss the ongoing lives and issues of people with developmental disabilities to spark positive change in the field.
And we have a lot of fun doing it.
Making sure that individuals are reaching the goals they have set for themselves. That's one of the many goals of Assured Health Services. If you're looking for a residential care provider or searching for ADS services, Assured Health is your go-to place. Assured Health, helping others succeed. Learn more at assuredhealthohio.com or call 419-442-8066.
I guess we'll just dive right into it. Jason, welcome to the podcast. Really excited to talk to you. Remote supports is something that, Tony's been very much into since day one. So with LifeBridge Remote, where did this come from? Where did you decide to get into the remote support game? Because it's kind of, since COVID and all that stuff, it's kind of grown. But before that, it wasn't really as popular. People were fighting it, we found, and now it's just kind of a thing that people do.
I literally remember sitting in like a county board meeting where they were talking to providers in Starr County, Ohio, and they were talking about, for the first time that I had been hearing it, and I'm sure, they've been talking about way before that, but talking about remote supports, assistive technologies. And I remember sitting there and thinking, wow, that sounds kind of cool, but I don't know how it works for an agency provider to make this transition. And to be real honest, like some of it was just big questions around revenue stream, right? It initially felt like this is a nice thing for DoD to pitch because it cuts their costs, but I don't think it's going to help agency providers. And so I just left that meeting that day and, well, good luck with that kind of deal.
Hey, real talk, not to cut you off too strong, but the fact that you gave the real facts behind it, that is love. Because that's what it was. It was a difficult thing for people to have to understand a new challenge. And like no one wanted to talk about it prior to.
Yeah, and in my experience, like kind of going along with that before I keep going, is that my experience is that there wasn't a lot of conversation around like, how does this actually feel to agency providers to be entering, for DoD to be pushing this technology first? It's a lot of talk about how it's going to help individuals and, what it's going to do to provide independence. But agency providers, like, they had a lot of questions. And a lot of folks I talked to are just like, I don't want to do that. And, outside of the money piece, like, I think a lot of folks are like, I don't know how that actually helps my individual. But so anyways, like fast forward a few more months later, I was sitting in another meeting and they're talking about remote supports and assistive technology again. And I don't know, like something was said that just made me think, and I think maybe it's just the fact that it came up again. In my mind, I made this connection to the idea that, oh, wow, like this actually is happening. And if I'm not on the bandwagon with this, like the train's going to go anyways. And so I made this transition to talking to my team, my staff, about the necessity for us to at least consider what the options were around supportive technologies. And at that time, I wasn't really thinking about becoming a remote support or assistive technology vendor. I was just like, I think we need to start talking about this for our team, right? And then a little while after that, DoD sent out a grant opportunity for providers who were interested in getting into the space. And so I jumped on that and was assigned we got the grant. I was assigned a mentor, Brian Hart from LAD down in Cincinnati. And
hey, shout out to Brian.
Yeah. Do you guys know Brian?
Yeah. Hey, we know him well enough that he helped you.
Okay. Fantastic. Thanks a lot. So yeah, I mean, that 6 months period with him was like this real eye-opening, awakening kind of understanding of, here's what it takes to do this. And I think, like a lot of things, I don't know, I get excited about an idea and I'm like, man, I'll whip that out in a month. No problem. It's not like that. Remote supports, especially, Brian's talking to us and he's bringing up all this stuff. I'm like, oh man, that's not easy, and I think so. On another hand, DoD is pushing remote support or pushing agency providers to just jump into the space, And it's not that easy. You're 5 or 6 individuals in before you're breaking even. And that's after hiring enough staff to like remote support monitor for 24 hours a day, right? And so you kind of see why, some of the bigger companies have just kind of monopolized the landscape, And then you see some other smaller agencies that are doing it, but they're kind of like whippy dippy throwing things together, and it's not, they're not really providing a great service. Anyway, so having Brian help with that was really powerful for me. Anyway, so that was my thing. Like I went from being like all about agency providers doing residential HPC really strongly. I think we offered high quality residential services. And then out of that grew this remote support piece. And I tried to do as much assistive technology for people as I can. And so we're super new. Like we're really young. I'm doing like 500, maybe 600 hours a week of remote support. I do probably, 3 or 4 referrals for assistive tech that I just do technology for SSAs per month. And I'm hoping to grow it. My heart is really, I think that a lot of people work with county boards, they work with SSAs, but my heart is really to encourage the ways that agency providers can be impacted in their business strategy, in their business revenue by utilizing remote supports. And it's a big paradigm shift for you get those folks to see how that's as supportive to them.
It really is, man. And I'm so impressed behind what you're putting in behind your skill set and everything, that you understand it's going to take some uppercuts and some left hooks. But something I do want to know, because I am in the group of people who do this, what do you think you offer different? What can you say that you and your company will do differently?
So can you repeat that? Yours sounds a little off for me.
I'm sorry. I feel good in my ears. Can you hear me better? There you go. We're good?
That's a little better, yeah.
All right. So basically, I love what you were saying about what you were saying. I just want to know from just a strategic standpoint and for the audience to hear, what are you doing different that the other agencies are not?
Well, I think first of all, I'd say that like, even though there's a few big organizations doing this, there is so much potential for individuals across Ohio to utilize remote support and assistive technology. It's like a vast ocean of opportunity out there. So I don't think the market's going to be flooded like crazy too quickly. I think strategically, what we're doing is we are making connections with the county boards, the SSAs that we already have connections with, and saying to them that we're available, like we're willing to work with the individuals that they're willing to serve in those spaces. And then the other strategic piece for us is that we're doing a lot of reaching out to agency providers to talk about, and I think it has to be talked about, like, how does this help you make more money? Like, in some ways, they want to know, like, how is this going to help me so that I can have the best services I can possibly have and not lose my revenue? And so we've got flyers, and I've got like different talks I give about, when you give up 55, 70 hours a week of staffing, you're losing X amount of dollars, but you're gaining some of that back, actually a pretty good portion of it back, because you serve as a backup provider, right? You get funds from being a backup agency provider. You don't pay for all the onboarding costs. You're not paying all the like unemployment insurance. You're not paying all the headache tax that comes with dealing with 3 extra staff a week. And that's like the fulcrum point, right, for agencies. And if agencies are like ours, which a lot of them are, you have a month where you're just crushing it, right? Like nobody's quit. You feel like I'm on top of the world. And then the next month, everybody quits. And you're like, what happened?
Right.
And that's the place where, I think about someone who invests their resources, right, their money, right? Like financial advisors always say, diversify your investments. In our world, a lot of times folks just, they do one thing and that's what they do, right? Assistive technologies, supportive technologies, it helps agency providers diversify their investment, right? So they can say, like, I'm not going to lose that part of my income because it's not dependent on whether I have like really high quality staff to staff those 80 hours a week, right?
Right.
I need to make sure that I've got someone on backup who can go in if it's necessary. But then I can do all the other things I'm doing a little lighter because I don't have that large burden of trying to figure out how my staffing is going to work. And remote support's it also creates a little bit of a net for people, right? Like maybe you're serving one individual for, 100 hours a week, that they've got remote supports, and you all of a sudden have a staff quit. Like you can implement like 24 hours of remote support that week, right? And now you're not scrambling like crazy. The owner's not diving in and working another 40 hours a week themselves trying to cover hours. Those are a few things. I don't know if that, leaves to anything for you all.
The Reliable Drug and Alcohol Testing Clinic is a leading provider and convenient source of pre-employment and occupational type testing. Their clinic provides services to a wide range of private businesses, healthcare facilities, and municipal and county courts. Reliable is an independent, locally owned clinic. As a result, they provide their services at a lower cost than the major hospitals, have faster turnaround times on test results, and eliminate the long waits typically incurred at these larger facilities. To learn more, visit reliabledrugtest.com.
How do you find that it helps the individuals? Because at the end of the day, I mean, it has to serve the individual well for it to be profitable. I mean, if you're going to that way, if the customer doesn't like what you're doing, it's not good. It's not working good. So what does it provide to the individuals you support? Because you have both sides of the coin. You're a residential company and you provide remote supports. So like, where do you find that they're happiest?
Yeah. And I'm a highly relational person. I love connecting with people. I love when people smile, right? I love when they go to an event and they're just like, that was the greatest thing I ever did. And, the people we work with, it's so easy. Like you walk in the room and you smile and they're like, I'm your best friend now, and that's a pretty good life, I've been pleasantly surprised with how easy it's been for my remote support staff to continue to actually build relationships with the people that they're working with. And like really good relationships. I mean, some of my folks, like they love getting on the computer and talking to my people. And so I've been really impressed with how that component of it has shown that like for some of our folks, like it really is a benefit for them to have somebody to call and talk to. Right. Okay. And so you pair that with the idea that some folks, and I think a lot of individuals actually do not, and they might not be able to articulate this, they don't love the idea of someone sitting in their home staring at them all day long.
Right? That is a very good point.
And so you like, all these ISPs, like all these plans are written so that, individual A has as much independence as possible, right? They need to learn to cook on their own. They're going to do their dishes. They're going to, handle their bedtime routine on their own. But how do they do that when someone's sitting there, like making sure they walk through everything? Step 1, step 2, step 3. Right. One of my favorite stories from recently is one of the guys who, we just started working with a couple months back, an individual who was 2-to-1 staffing. He had some aggressive behavior things that he was dealing with. And, there were always 2-to-1 staff. But after he came out of a psychiatric facility, they couldn't find staff for him. And so I kind of threw out there, like, why don't we try some remote? He's very high functioning. And as I looked at his case, I'm like, I think some of this is just because there's too many staff there, to be honest with you. And so we did remote supports for like 10 hours a day, and he had staff the rest of the day. And the only problem we had was when staff was there.
I love that.
And otherwise he did great, And the guy, like, at one point he's like, Jason, I don't have any food in my house. Everything's in the freezer. I said, okay, well, what's in your freezer? He said, I got a bag of French fries. I could just eat those. And he's like, pulled them out like he's just going to start munching them frozen, you know? I'm like, whoa. I said, let's cook those. I've never done this
you a
before.
good one. I would have been like, are they good to you that way?
All right, there's dinner.
Like, is that how you like to eat those? Because I've eaten frozen potatoes and just regular potatoes before they were cooked. Wasn't the best thing, but it was nutritious.
Live and learn. Yeah.
All right.
Live and learn.
So I walk him through for the next 20 minutes, like how to put them in a pan. I mean, it's not like crazy, you know. I'm like, put them in a pan, a little oil, heat them up, and I'll tell you, the look on his face when those came out and he bit into that first fry and it was like, I
love it.
And then the next like 5 days he's making French fries on his own, you know. But he never would have done that if he had staff in the house with him, right? And so I talk about the financial piece because I think agency providers need to hear that piece in order to get their feet in the game. But I also highly believe that this really is a tool to help individuals get the independence that we all talk about they're supposed to be able to have, right? Yeah. And so that individual literally went from 2-to-1 staffing to like 12 to 15 hours of drop-in services a week.
Oh my goodness.
And nice. And the rest was remote support. So we're there, we're talking to him, we're encouraging him. You know, he got a medication dispenser that helped him take his meds, right? And the same thing, another individual I work with, the exact same story. He wasn't aggressive. He just had he had a personality that it was very hard for staff to be around, right? And you know, he'd accuse staff of stealing all his spoons or accuse staff of breaking his remote controller. And lo and behold, when there weren't any staff there, he's thriving. I'm like, okay, there's a reason for that, you know? So, yeah, I think in order to elevate the level of independence and the quality of care for our individuals, we have to elevate not just the pay that we give to staff, right? But like the quality of staff. And maybe that comes with how much we pay them, but it also comes with sometimes just saying like, I'm not going to hire somebody who like is not made to do this work.
Do this.
Right?
Exactly.
And when you can cut out 60 hours a week of staffing, like you can keep those staff who are doing really well and get rid of the ones who aren't. And then you move into going to your county board and saying, I'm actually able to take more individuals now because my quality, like the quality of my business is better.
It's like it's a double entendre with it. The more that you can actually teach and train people to be better at what you do or in their own lives and they become self-sufficient, now we can move on to the next person who was not. And I think that this is where this new stage of commitment to not just remote supports, not just adaptive technology, but of thinking. Like we are here for people and we need to teach them to do more for themselves. Mm-hmm. Like I have been a true proponent of this for a very long time. And I think this kind of technology is the place that like those two worlds coexist.
I'm Dr. Craig Escudé, President of Intellectability. State developmental disability agencies, managed care organizations, and providers across the United States use Intellectability's health risk screening tool, e-learn courses, and person-centered training to improve health equity for people with IDD. Visit replacingrisks.com to learn more about how you can employ these tools with people you support.
Yeah, and we've heard the same success story over and over. That's why we've been, so what's the word I'm looking for? Like excited about remote supports because it's been like this guy, this lady, they're acting out when there's staff there and nobody wants to work with them, and then they just literally want to be left alone, like you would want to be left alone in your own home, like I would want to be left alone in my own home. And I think it's such a good thing. And have you seen any, I mean, COVID is, still a word that's thrown around a lot, but since that whole time period happened and remote supports became almost a necessity, I mean, have you seen this being utilized for more than just cases where it's like this person doesn't want people in their house? I mean, I would assume across the board, unless someone needs an exorbitant amount of physical help, this is probably a great solution for a majority of people out there.
Yeah, I mean, you really hit on a key piece there, that this actually is a tool for the majority of people. I mean, like, most people can utilize it. And so some of the narrative needs to be that, like, going on remote supports doesn't mean that you're now 10 hours a day with remote supports, right? Mm-hmm. It can be that the moment you get home from your day program, you're home by yourself for 4 hours, and then staff come in after that. And I think that I think that's where people are finding, especially after COVID, like, people are finding that, there are some holes that we need to fill that could easily be filled with remote supports. Or sometimes even just an assistive technology that lets them reach out to someone or do the thing that they couldn't do before. They needed staff, and now assistive technology lets them do, X, Y, Z, whatever it is. One of the questions that people often ask is, maybe back in a bit, like, I think more people were left alone during COVID than anyone would really care to know about. Just because people did not have staff, right? And companies, as much as they want to do the best they can, like, there's just a time where it's like, I don't have anybody to go there, and Sally's just going to have to be by herself for 2 or 3 days. And that's when you really start as a company to realize, like, who do I feel comfortable, like, being by themselves and who can't be by themselves, right? And so maybe that's a scenario that companies need to think about when they're considering remote supports is, if I'm down 7 staff and I literally can't fill 25 hours today, like, who's going to be the first that we don't go to see, right? Because we know they're actually going to be okay.
Yeah, because you got to make the sacrifice. I mean, at some point in time, you got to make the sacrifice. Somebody's needs and things will take precedence over others. I mean, that's life.
Yeah. One of those moments in a day where I often hear pushback is someone says, well, I mean, they can't get ready on their own in the morning. How are they going to get ready for their day program?
Isn't that our job? Well, they don't teach them to do that.
Exactly. And maybe they don't like the breakfast you're making for them, so they're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
But there's, with a little bit of, like, putting our heads together and solving problems, there's a lot of ways to work around some of the complications that I think SSAs and agency providers have when they're wondering if it's going to work for this person or that person. I think agency providers are the ones that really hold the keys. The number of times I hear an SSA, when I work with an individual and I talk to SSA and say, hey, I think this person could utilize some supportive technologies. And they're like, well, the provider really doesn't think so. I'm like, okay, well, it's not really the provider's place. I mean, they can give feedback and input, but it's really the individual.
Yeah.
In the SSA who can say, no, this is clearly someone who can utilize it.
Even with something like that, SSA, guess what? We're about to have another meeting today. Like, I love meetings because I keep them 15 minutes and under. But if there's a problem, guess what? In 15 minutes, we're going to figure it out. Mm-hmm. Who's the person that's going to have the solution? Mm-hmm. So even going forward with your stuff, please utilize that. We don't need no extra talk. Y'all did what y'all needed to do. It showed that it wasn't working. Let us now come in and help.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with LifeBridge Remote, like, I think I also pushed the idea that, like, it's okay to start and fail and, and come back to things, right? Like, if you start with an individual who has never been alone by themselves and you give them overnights on remote support and they legitimately get really scared, like, well, then we back up and we say, let's maybe do, 2 nights a week for the next 2 months, and just see how that goes. The answer is not like, well, this just doesn't work for that person.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we are very excited about what you're doing, and we really are trying to get people to realize this from your standpoint. Like, this isn't you don't need to just take somebody from having a full-time staff to full-time remote supports. Like you said, it can be here and there, and that's what's really important. It's not anything to be scared of. So, before we wrap up here, Jason, where can people learn more about LifeBridge Remote? How can they, use your services if you're even taking on more people right now? I know it's a hectic time, and we really appreciate you coming on here and talking to us, because I think it's important stuff.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to share here. Our stuff is easy. LifeBridgeRemote.com. Like life, have a great life, bridge, walk the bridge, and remote, like remote controller. And or info@lifebridgeremote.com for email address. I think it's a great opportunity for people to invest. And I would say to most folks, just like reach out, have a conversation, talk about one or two individuals in your agency that you think, actually maybe we could consider trying this. And see what it does for the strategic growth of your business. And I think I keep reminding agency providers, this is a strategic business move for you. Some folks say, like, do something to grow your business every single day, right? And this is a business growth mindset type of move for a lot of folks,
especially in this field.
And it's exciting. Yeah, for sure.
Well, Jason, thank you so much. We will love to have people go check out your stuff, and we appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you guys.
THS Remote Supports is clearly focused on improving independent living through dynamic and personalized services. Their systems have been carefully developed and perfected to ensure that everyone receives the best care through the least intrusive means possible. Located in Cincinnati, Ohio, they've spent over 20 years providing in-home supports to individuals with disabilities. If you or someone you know is looking for a remote service provider, go to thsrss.com or call 513-882-9088.